The glass doors of the downtown high-rise hissed closed behind her. It was just past 7:30 a.m., and the lobby was already humming. Business suits moved in clusters, lanyards bouncing as people checked phones, sipped coffee, murmured about breakout sessions and client decks. Tanya Ellis walked in alone. Her coat hung neatly over her arm, a leather folder clutched in her hand. Black slacks, flats, no jewelry. Just one visible accessory, a blue conference badge tucked inside her coat pocket, barely showing. She paused near the directory, checking for the conference room floor. Then came the voice, firm, directed. "Ma'am, this area's restricted. Event registration is on the lower level." The security guard stood to her right. He had that voice, clipped, authoritative, automatic. He didn't ask what she needed. He told her what to do. Tanya turned toward him, her expression neutral. "I'm here for the Fidelity Partners Summit. I'm one of the speakers." The guard glanced at her badge, then back at her. A pause. "Speakers check in downstairs too," he said. "I can escort you." She didn't move. "Thanks, but I was told to come straight to 23. I'm due to prep with the AV team." Another pause, longer this time. His eyes flicked to her shoes, her folder, her face. Tanya stood still, waiting. Not rude, not soft, just there. And he was already starting to second-guess what he thought he knew. He shifted his stance. Not defensive, not open, just uncertain now. "Do you have a speaker pass?" he asked, pointing at the barely visible badge. Tanya calmly pulled the lanyard from her coat pocket, letting the badge hang. Her name printed cleanly beneath the conference logo. Tanya Ellis, keynote. The guard squinted, still didn't move. His eyes flicked to the elevators behind her, as if silently calculating how much control he was losing. "You're the keynote?" It wasn't a question. "Not really." Tanya nodded once. "I am." He scratched the back of his neck, glanced toward the concierge desk, then back at her. "You got ID?" She raised one eyebrow, just slightly, but reached into her coat and handed him her driver's license. No words, no sigh. He took longer than necessary checking it. She stood silent. Finally, he handed it back. "All right, just doing my job." She didn't reply, just turned toward the elevator bank and pressed the button for 23. Behind her, she could feel him still watching. Not because he needed to, because something didn't match what he expected. And for the first time that morning, he wasn't sure where the mismatch really was. In her, or in him. The elevator doors slid shut. Alone now, Tanya exhaled. Not loud, not dramatic, just a breath. She'd stopped counting these moments years ago. The pause before being believed, the search for proof, the extra glance at her ID like maybe it belonged to someone else. She tapped the folder gently against her leg as the elevator rose. Inside were her slides, notes, printed agenda. She'd been finalizing them at 5 a.m., sipping bitter hotel coffee in a robe and slippers. Not because she wasn't ready, but because she always made sure she was more than ready. It wasn't nerves that made her pulse steady now. It was the familiar quiet that came before a room tried to decide who she was. The elevator chimed. Floor 23. She stepped into the hallway lined with hotel-style carpeting and muted silver sconces. A young woman in a headset looked up from a clipboard and smiled. "Hi, Tanya Ellis." Tanya nodded. "Oh, great. We've been waiting for you. The tech team's already in the ballroom. Let me walk you there." No hesitation. No double takes. Just a greeting. Just normal. It was always striking how rare that still felt. The double doors opened to reveal a quiet stage bathed in early light. Rows of round tables filled the space, each one neatly set with conference programs and tiny place cards. At the far end, two techs stood adjusting the mic stand and projector angles. Tanya followed the woman with the headset down the aisle. Her steps were even deliberate, not stiff, just steady. "This is where you'll be speaking," the woman said, gesturing toward the small raised platform. "We'll have about 300 attendees, mostly senior partners, a few clients. You'll be on at 9 o'clock sharp." Tanya nodded, setting her folder on the podium. The taller AV tech walked over, offering a handshake. "Morning. I'm Eli. We've got your deck loaded, but let us know if you need to run anything." "Thanks," Tanya said. "I'll want to do a quick pass-through in about 15. Just need to center a couple sections." Eli nodded, impressed by her directness. As the techs moved back to their setup, Tanya scanned the room. She always did. Layout, exits, line of sight. Not out of paranoia, out of habit. She'd spoken in dozens of rooms like this, where the audience didn't quite expect her. But they remembered her. That's what mattered. The headset woman returned. Oh, and breakfast's being served in the lounge next door. All speakers are invited. Tanya gave a small smile. Thanks. I'll head over in a minute. But first, she looked out over the empty tables again. The calm before the shift. Because once people sat down and saw her at the front, that shift always came. The speaker's lounge was quiet, polished. Low music played from hidden speakers and the smell of fresh coffee drifted in from a nearby cart. A long buffet table offered fruit, croissants, small yogurt parfaits in glass jars. Tanya stepped inside and scanned the room. 3 men in navy suits stood near the espresso machine, laughing quietly about something. A woman in a red blazer typed on her tablet while balancing a plate on her lap. No one looked up as Tanya entered. She moved toward the coffee cart. Not rushed. Not hesitant. Behind her, one of the men lowered his voice. Can I help you? He asked, casual but not friendly. Tanya turned slightly. Just grabbing coffee. Thanks. He smiled, but it didn't reach his eyes. This lounge is for scheduled speakers only. She didn't answer right away. She reached for the stainless carafe, poured slowly, added 1 sugar, stirred. Then turned back to him, her tone neutral. I'm on at 9. His smile faded. A flicker of something crossed his face, maybe confusion. Maybe the start of recognition. One of his colleagues shifted, trying to see the name on her badge. It didn't matter. Tanya stepped past them, found a quiet corner near the window, and sat down. Behind her, the whispering began. The kind that always started when someone realized the story they thought they were and might be about something or someone else entirely. They didn't say much at first. Just exchanged glances. Quick, embarrassed. The man who'd questioned her drifted back to the espresso machine, suddenly preoccupied with perfecting his foam. Tanya didn't look at them again. She sipped her coffee slowly, flipping open her folder. Her notes were already memorized, but routine had power. Reviewing them grounded her. From across the room, the woman in the red blazer finally looked up. Her eyes landed on Tanya, held there for a moment. No smile. No nod. Just realization. Then back to the tablet. That's how it happened most times. Not dramatic. Not apologetic. Just quiet recalibrating. By the time Tanya stood and gathered her things, the room had shifted. Not loudly, subtly. Enough to notice, not enough to call out. No more questions. No more glances. Just the silence of people realizing they'd assumed too much too fast. As she reached the door, a different man, younger, maybe early 30s, held it open for her. Looking forward to your talk, he said, voice quiet. She nodded once. Thanks. He didn't meet her eyes. But he meant it. Back in the ballroom, the tables were filling. Lanyards swung from necks, coffee cups jostled, and voices buzzed as old colleagues reconnected and new ones angled for introductions. Tanya stood near the stage, watching it all. Calm. One of the event coordinators, a young man in a fitted gray vest, hurried over with a clipboard. Ms. Ellis, just a heads up, he said, slightly breathless. We're running about 10 minutes behind. First panel went long. Tanya nodded. No problem. You'll be mic'd up backstage at 9:10, then walk out at the tail end of the MC's intro. Got it. He smiled gratefully and darted away. She remained still. Across the room at a table near the front, she saw the 3 men from the lounge. Their heads were tilted together. One of them, the one who'd questioned her, was clearly mid-story. His hand moved in a way that suggested he was reenacting something. Then he saw her looking. His hand froze. His posture shifted. Tanya didn't look away. Not confrontational. Not smug. Just present. The kind of presence that unsettles people when they know they were wrong but haven't figured out how to sit with it. She turned and walked toward the back hallway leading to the stage entrance. Behind her, the murmurs quieted. They always did, eventually. The hallway behind the ballroom was cool and dimly lit. Just past a set of black curtains, a small staging area had been arranged, folding chairs, a tall mirror, bottled water lined neatly on a tray. A woman with a headset stood by a rolling rack of mic packs. Hi, Tanya, she said, stepping forward. I'm Jenna. I'll be cueing your walk-on and running your mic. Tanya smiled. Nice to meet you. You'll be going on after the MC finishes. Just walk straight to the center mark and your slides will follow the first cue. You good with the lav mic? Tanya nodded, unbuttoning her jacket to let Jenna clip it. You're our closing voice, Jenna added with a smile. No pressure, right? Tanya returned the smile, small but real. None at all. She took a seat on one of the folding chairs, adjusting the mic wire beneath her blouse. From the stage, she could hear the muffled thump of applause as the previous panel ended. Then the voice of the MC, bright and practiced. And now, to close out our morning with a keynote on leadership in volatile markets, please welcome. A pause. Tanya Ellis. Jenna gave a nod. Tanya rose. And as she stepped forward, parting the black curtain, she felt the quiet that always met her before the first word. Not hesitation. Just recalibration. Because she didn't look like the last person they'd applauded. And in a moment, none of that would matter. The lights hit her first. Then the silence. 300 heads turned at once, an audience mid-applause, expecting one thing and getting another. Tanya walked to center stage. She didn't rush. Didn't smile too wide or adjust the mic unnecessarily. Just stood there calm, anchored with the confidence of someone who'd arrived not by accident but by every earned step. The applause dipped. A few clapped slower now. A couple stopped altogether, caught between social reflex and confusion. In the front row, the man from the lounge shifted in his seat, his jaw slightly clenched. She stood for a moment longer without speaking, letting the room feel the quiet, letting the shift complete itself. Then she leaned slightly toward the mic and said clearly, "Let's talk about how we lead when everything we thought we knew starts to change." Not flashy, not dramatic, but something in her voice, the steadiness of it, the weight, snapped everyone back to attention. It was no longer about who they expected to see. It was now about what they were about to hear. And just like that, she had the room. 10 minutes in, the room had shifted. People weren't glancing at phones anymore. The rustling of notes had stopped. Even the servers refilling coffee at the back of the ballroom moved more quietly now. Tanya's voice wasn't loud, but it carried. She spoke about volatility not just in markets, but in people. About how unpredictability doesn't just test a company's structure, it tests its character. She didn't use buzzwords. No dramatic gestures. Just plain truths delivered clearly. When pressure hits, she said, some leaders pull rank. Others earn it. The difference is who people trust when the systems wobble. Heads began to nod. Even the man who'd held the door for her earlier, he was near the back, arms folded, watching with a kind of quiet focus. At the front, the three men from the lounge were silent. No side talk. No stories. Just stillness. And in that stillness, Tanya moved through case studies, decisions she'd made under fire, and what it meant to lead with both data and instinct when neither had all the answers. Her slides changed behind her, but no one was looking at them anymore. They were looking at her. By now, the shift wasn't subtle. People were leaning forward. Phones left untouched. Even those who'd entered late, slipping quietly into the back rows, caught the tone immediately and stayed silent. Tanya's words weren't about proving anything. She wasn't trying to impress them. She was teaching. I've seen good strategies fail, she said. Not because they were wrong, but because the people delivering them didn't believe the room would listen. A pause. And sometimes they were right. That landed hard. Several faces in the crowd changed, you could see it. Not just agreement, but recognition. The kind that made people remember moments they hadn't questioned until now. At one table, a woman with her arms crossed slowly unfolded them. At another, someone lowered their chin into their hand, eyes fixed on Tanya like they were seeing her for the first time. Not just as a speaker, but as a mirror. Because that was the thing, her presence didn't challenge the room's intelligence. It challenged their assumptions. And now some of them were realizing the difference for the first time. She told a story near the end. No slides. No stats. Just memory. A few years back, Tanya said, I walked into a boardroom for a funding pitch. Spent months prepping. Numbers airtight. Vision clear. The first question I got, before I even sat down now. She looked out at the crowd. Was whether I was catering the meeting or just dropping something off. The room stilled. No laughter. No gasps. Just silence. She didn't flinch. I answered, I'm the founder. And I'm here to ask for $8 million. A few people exhaled audibly. She continued. They gave me 9. Scattered chuckles broke the tension, not mocking, more like a release. A few heads shook in quiet disbelief. Others clapped. Not loudly, just a few palms meeting, slow and thoughtful. Tanya didn't react. She let the weight of the story sit. Then she added, they saw the product. But it took a moment for them to see the person. That was the moment. Not a climax. A shift. The kind that doesn't come with fanfare, just a quiet click inside someone's mind. And from the expressions across the room, that click was happening. Tanya stepped slightly away from the podium now, hands relaxed at her sides. No notes. No screens. Just her. I'm not here to talk about identity, she said calmly. I'm here to talk about clarity. About how leadership isn't about being seen, it's about seeing. Seeing the room. Seeing the patterns. Seeing what most people overlook. She let her eyes move across the audience. Not sweeping. Just meeting gaze after gaze. And if we build teams that only recognize authority when it walks in wearing a familiar shape, we're not leading, we're stalling. No applause this time. Just stillness. A thoughtful, almost uncomfortable kind. The kind that stays with people longer than any standing ovation ever could. At the front, one of the men from the lounge, the one who'd smirked, now sat with his fingers tented over his mouth. Not hiding. Just quiet. At the back, the younger man who'd held the door tapped a note into his phone. In the center, a woman with a fidelity badge scribbled something into the margin of her printed agenda. Underlined it twice. Tanya gave a small nod. Thank you for listening, she said. And more importantly, for adjusting. Then she stepped back. No bow. No wide smile. Just presence. The applause came late. Not because they weren't moved, but because they weren't ready. Like the room had to take a breath before remembering what came next. Then it built. Not thunderous, but solid. Real. Tanya gave a single nod and stepped off the stage. Backstage, Jenna waited with a bottle of water. You leveled the room, she whispered, eyes wide. Tanya smiled faintly. I just told the truth. She took the water, unscrewed the cap, and sipped. Behind her, the ballroom buzzed, not with laughter or networking, but with conversation that sounded different. Slower. Closer to honest. Outside the ballroom doors, some attendees had already gathered. Not in line for lunch. In circles. Small ones. Replaying things she'd said. Parsing what they'd thought. In one corner, the man who had stopped her in the lounge stood alone, one hand in his pocket, staring at nothing in particular. He looked like someone who wanted to say something, but couldn't yet find the words that didn't sound like an excuse. Tanya walked past him without pause. Not coldly. Just clearly. She didn't owe him the space to work through his discomfort. She'd already done the heavy lifting. The elevator ride down was quiet. Tanya stood at the back, hands folded in front of her, the same way she had that morning, calm, grounded, unreadable. Beside her, two younger women in navy blazers were whispering. Not about lunch. Not about sales targets. She changed how I see it, one said, barely audible. I know, the other replied. I didn't even realize I was part of the problem. Neither looked at Tanya. But she heard them. As the elevator reached the lobby and the doors opened, Tanya stepped out first. The security guard from earlier was still at his post. He saw her. Stood a little straighter. No words this time. Just a nod. Not the kind people give to be polite, the kind they give when they've been thinking. She returned the nod. Nothing more. Outside, the city was in motion. Cabs, voices, heat rising from the pavement. All of it unchanged. But inside that building, in the room she'd left, in the hallway where assumptions had stalled her, in the silence between someone's reaction and their regret, something had shifted. Not loudly. Not permanently. But enough. Enough for the next person who didn't look like the role. Enough for the one watching from the corner who needed to see what strength could look like without noise. Tanya stepped into the sunlight and kept walking. Not away from the moment, just forward. As always,